On Valentine's Day, Joe Biden exploited the anniversary of a major school shooting to push for gun control laws that wouldn't have stopped the school shooting he's exploiting to push for more gun control laws. Biden wrote, "This administration will not wait for the next mass shooting to heed that call. We will take action to end our epidemic of gun violence and make our schools and communities safer. Today I am calling on Congress to enact common sense gun law reforms, including requiring background checks on all gun sales, banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and eliminating immunity for gun manufacturers who knowingly put weapons of war on our streets. We owe it to all of those who have lost and to all those left behind to grieve to make a change. The time to act is now." In a cheap attempt at sounding authoritative when in reality he's begging Congress to do what he wants, Joe Biden tells on himself and the entire gun control lobby when he says this administration will no longer wait for the next mass shooting to heed that call, which essentially means normally we just wait for a tragedy that we can exploit in order to push for gun control because people are more emotional after a tragedy. And when people are emotional, they just want to ease their emotions at the moment. So we try to get them to vote on gun control laws that have a long-term negative effect, but short-term relief from the emotions they are feeling after a major tragedy. This is political ambulance chasing 101, except now the Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the White House. So Biden's like, why wait for a tragedy to exploit when we can just exploit our dominance in Congress? He continues by saying, "We will take action to end our epidemic of gun violence and make our schools and communities safer." In 2020, the annual gun death rate was 12.2 deaths per 100,000 people. Yet in 1974, we had a gun death rate of 16.3 per 100,000 people. Someone want to explain to me how we have a gun violence epidemic when we've seen the largest number of gun purchases in history over the last 2 years, but our annual gun death rate in 2020 is substantially lower than it was in the 1970s. I tell you how, because the phrase epidemic of gun violence is horseshit. It's an emotional ploy to get you to believe that the gun violence is so bad we must resort to extreme measures to make it go down. Our recent gun death rates are consistent. 30 to 40,000 people die from gun deaths every year, and every year 60 to 65% of those deaths are from suicides, and nearly 80% of gun homicides are due to drug and gang violence. We have over 400 million guns in this country, with over 300 million people with less than 1% of the population being murdered by someone with a gun. That is not an epidemic. In 2021, the US didn't even rank in the top 10 countries for firearm-related homicides, and we have more guns in the hands of citizens than any other country in the world. Yet Joe Biden continues to say this: "Today I am calling on Congress to enact common sense gun reform, including requiring background checks on all gun sales, banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and eliminating the immunity for gun manufacturers who knowingly put weapons of war on our streets." Common sense gun law reform is nothing more than shaming language. It's designed to make you feel like if you don't agree with any of these measures, you're a monster who doesn't care about people dying, because these measures are so common sense, everybody should want to do them. But here's what Joe Biden doesn't tell you. Joe Biden says we need background checks on all gun sales, giving you the impression that the Parkland shooter got his guns without a background check. Except, even the ATF said that he bought the guns legally from a gun store, which means he had a background check. Even Time magazine admitted that examination of the deadliest recent mass shootings showed it was difficult to point to cases where more expansive background checks would have saved lives. Many of the people who perpetrated these mass shootings passed background checks, some including the man who killed 12 at a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado in 2012, or the shooter who killed 22 at an El Paso, Texas Walmart on Saturday, passed because they did not have a significant criminal record. Others, like the shooter who killed 9 in Daytona, Ohio on Sunday, had juvenile charges that were expunged. And several, including the 2012 Sandy Hook, Connecticut shooting, did not face background checks because they obtained their weapons through friends or family. Next, Biden says we should have an assault weapon ban. Again, giving you the false impression that banning civilian semi-automatic rifles like the AR-15 would have saved more lives. But last I checked, the FBI found that more people were killed by hands and feet than they were from so-called assault weapons, which is just code for any civilian semi-automatic rifle like the AR-15. The Parkland shooter used an AR-15 and killed 17 people. The Virginia Tech shooter used a 9mm handgun and a little .22 pistol and killed 32 people. Basically double what the Parkland shooter did with what Joe Biden calls an assault weapon. Last, Joe Biden says he wants to eliminate immunity for gun manufacturers who knowingly put weapons of war on our streets. Joe Biden wants you to think that gun manufacturers cannot be held liable for defective products, which is not true. What he's not telling you is that he's referring to the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, which literally says you can't sue a gun manufacturer simply because somebody used one of their guns to commit a crime. The only reason that there is a bill for this is because the gun control lobby kept trying to sue gun manufacturers simply because the criminals used that company's gun for the sole purpose of trying to bankrupt the gun industry. It got so bad they had to make a bill for it. I did a whole video about this, but here's the real question. Why isn't Joe trying to sue BMW after the Isla Vista killings where the guy stabbed, shot, and drove over people with his BMW 328i? I'll tell you why. Because it's f***ing stupid. And anyone with a brain knows that if you subject any industry to this type of end user liability, it will literally destroy the industry. Yet Joe just said he wants to pass common sense gun reform. How's destroying the entire gun industry common sense? I don't want anyone to die, whether it be from a gun, a knife, a car, or hand, or feet. But I also don't want to be left defenseless because people keep voting to give up our rights for a false sense of safety or in some feeble attempt to assuage their social justice warrior guilt, brought on by politicians who manipulate people's emotions. Everyone feels bad when mass shootings happen. Everyone mourns and everyone is sad. But what we don't do is cut off our nose to spite our face. You can't use gun control as a proxy to make yourself feel better about what happened at Parkland. But that's exactly what Joe Biden wants you to do. You can literally see the slime dripping from the words of his last sentence. We owe it to all of those we've lost and to all those left behind to grieve, to make a change. The time to act is now. Everything this man has said in this statement was designed to attack your emotions and put you in an irrational state. Millions of people every year use guns to save their lives, and many of them use AR-15s. What about those people? Why isn't it time to act now and protect the rights of those millions of people who use a gun every year to protect themselves and their families? Where is the letter from Joe Biden congratulating all the people who use guns to protect their lives? No, it's always a time to act now when it means giving up your power to the government, but never a time to act now when it means giving more power to the people. That should tell you something. You know, we talk a lot about empowerment in this country, except for when it comes to the Second Amendment. However, I can't think of anything more empowering than having the most effective tool to protect you and your family. So help me spread this message by liking and sharing this video with everyone you know. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment, because the Second Amendment, when it said militia, it wasn't talking about the government. It was talking about you. Also, if you want to know where to find the I'm the Militia shirt and merchandise, click the I'm the Militia link in the description section of this video.